You have an exercise here in the textbook, page 102. Turn the first page, you'll see page 102. Which one of these sentences do you most agree with? There are four sentences. Number one, when we suffer tragedy, we seek to understand its cause and meaning. We try, we look for answers. Say, is there a deeper meaning? Why is this happening?
I agree.
The second sentence, struggling with faith in God due to suffering results from a lack of belief. Do you agree with this statement? That if somebody says, I'm really struggling with faith because I'm suffering, so I'm having questions, does that mean he has a lack of faith, or is that not an indicator? Sentence number
No,
three.
that's classic Jonah. That's classic Jonah. It
Job,
doesn't
what do you
mean
mean?
so. You can question your faith. Job. Oh yeah, Jonah. Sorry, I don't know the English.
Eov is
Sorry.
Job. Jonah is Job. Okay. Sentence number three. When we suffer tragedy, we are prone to feeling.
Eov, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah. When we suffer tragedy, we are prone to feelings of loneliness. Okay? People feel like they're the only one who's experiencing their pain. Nobody can feel my pain as much as I feel it.
Right.
Nobody really understands what I'm going through.
It depends also when you talk about tragedy, what kind of, some people consider any,
This is very broad.
yeah, tragedy could
These
be,
are general.
Personal, communal.
It's all relevant. It's all
Very
relevant.
general.
yeah, but there are different,
Sentence number four.
There's different levels.
Right. Okay, these are just ideas to think about. We're not
It's an
gonna
overview.
settle on it.
It's an overview.
The tragedies that we suffer often leave a scar. We never return to our previous selves. They have an impact. We can't trust afterwards as easily. We can't have relationships as easily as early on.
how about when tragedies have happened to other people and you let it affect you?
That's a transference.
Then right.
I have that a lot.
You're
Yeah,
sympathizing with their
intolerance,
tragedy.
you can't do that. That's.
I feel like I have to suffer for somebody
No,
else,
you don't have to suffer.
but I have nothing to do with it.
Okay, so here's what I'll say. As a rabbi, I get this question many times of why does God do this? Why me? Why are things happening? Why such tragedies? I'm talking about with suffering. People ask questions. Why is this happening?
Right.
And
Are we put
It's,
on earth to suffer?
No,
right,
why?
all these
What's
questions.
your explanation? What's your interpretation? I want to hear your interpretation.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what I answer?
You
I
told
don't
me
answer.
already, keep quiet.
I don't answer. I dodge the question.
You told me last time, keep quiet.
No, so let me tell you why. Okay.
I want to hear
So
your real view.
basically what I'll do in this class is I'll tell you why I don't answer the question.
You don't know. Right?
What I'll do is I'll sympathize, I'll empathize. The person is going through pain. I'll give him a hug. I'll look him in the eyes. But sometimes people actually ask a curious question.
Rabbi should.
Now, sometimes the question, they're asking why, and they're not really asking why. They're just crying out and saying it hurts.
Right.
And that's their way of crying out of pain. So that's an emotional question. So then really, they're not really asking. But sometimes they're actually curious. It's happening to them. They're going through, sometimes people have chronic suffering. And their whole life they're disabled. And they're wondering, what is the religious answer to this?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a common misconception, which we alluded to in the exercise earlier, that if somebody is crying from suffering, crying from pain, then that means he's not religious enough. He's not believing enough. He doesn't have enough faith. Because if he would really have faith, then he would understand that surely everything is for a reason, and surely everything is for the good, and God's doing it, so he wouldn't have any cries. That's a misconception. It's a mistake. This is a quote from Maimonides on the screen. In the Laws of Mourning.
What's that in Hebrew?
No.
Evel, Chot Evel, Rambam. Maimonides is
Rambam. Okay.
Whoever does not mourn over
Right.
his dead in the manner which our sages commanded is cruel, which means the Torah gives guidelines. It was instituted by the rabbis, the 7 days of Shiva, and then the 30 days of
But do you
mourning, and
agree
then
with
the
this?
year. This is the
Very
Rambam's
general.
words. If someone
Okay.
doesn't mourn, meaning somebody says, I'm complacent. My relative died. Okay, it's natural. That's why should I be sad? This is the way the world runs. People turn 120 and they die, or they reach a
Natural.
ripe age. Or if somebody says, well, God has a good reason for it, so I'm not going to feel very sad about
But
it.
at least show empathy.
Says the Rambam, he's cruel. Someone who thinks this is cruel.
Allison.
I want to hear what he has to
excuse me.
say.
All right, but
know
Mayor
you
and
feel.
I, we
Yeah, but you're
interrupt.
not with just him now. I mean, I would like to.
Just don't be so sensitive, calm down. You're in a place of
It's
peace.
okay. Everything's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's okay.
Wait, whoever does not mourn over his dead in the manner which our sages commanded is cruel.
Misha
So-
Abel, somebody who doesn't mourn,
Yeah,
is considered cruel. Meaning, if somebody says, "I'm not
But-
going to mourn. I'm just going to go to work tomorrow,"
16.
and by Jews we sit shiva when a relative dies. So we take off from work. We stay home for 7 days. If someone says, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to work tomorrow morning. I'll continue my life. My course
What
is
I have-
regular.
I don't
I
know.
have to ask,
Alright.
which our sages commanded. Are we referring to, are you saying that this is like, this is a mitzvah of like 7 days Shiva and stuff like that?
Yeah. That's
Like,
what he's referring to. Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand because which our sages commanded can mean many things, right?
Yeah. The whole thing of mourning.
We
The
can
Shiva and
mourn in
everything,
our
it's all
own
from the
way.
sages,
Why
that's
can
why,
individuality take
Okay.
notice in this case, where you mourn in your own way? Some people are not as demonstrative as another, but they still feel for the person. How do you attempt to evaluate somebody else's concern for someone's loss?
Okay, the words which our sages commanded, put them in parentheses. The idea is not if you choose a different way of mourning. The idea is if you don't mourn.
If you don't mourn,
If you don't
that's
mourn.
extreme.
If somebody doesn't mourn, then that's cruel. Okay, the sages commanded part, that's because they instituted the whole concept of mourning. Even till today, it's quite surprising that many secular communities don't have it, and
So we're
it's
asked to
really
mourn and we're asked to suffer a little bit for somebody else's loss. Is that what it is?
we have to feel bad. We have
To
to
me, it's
feel
empathy.
right. We have to feel empathetic when something
Yeah,
happens.
I'm usually like that. I don't have a problem with being.
So what do we see? What's the Torah approach? Is there such a thing in the Torah as I'm a strong believer, so I'm not going to be affected by tragedy. I'm going to stay complacent.
That's
There's no
not
such
good
thing.
either.
There's no such thing.
No
Torah
good.
says there's a concept of mourning.
Yeah.
If a tragedy happens,
What is Rambam?
the person
say?
is sad for 7
Oh, that's
days.
Rambam, okay.
That's the Rambam.
What about the other one? What's his name? Maybe Rabbi Akiva, would he agree with all?
Yeah.
What is the, not the Rambam, what's the other one?
As long as you don't see another
hold in
opinion, this
esteem.
is the consensus.
There's another one we hold in esteem.
But why are we, let's think about it, right? Our sages, our wise one have opinions and have interpretations instead of asking what they said. Let's think about the topic,
Yeah.
right? What do you think about what he said? What do you think about the sentence I'm asking?
It has some validity to it, but it's all relative, as I said. Everybody has a different personality. Everybody responds in an individual manner. Not everybody has the same emotional, what's the word, formulation, right?
Right. Let's get to it to explain why the Rambam really says this. Why do we say that someone should feel empathy? Someone should feel the pain of tragedy. We'll see soon more why that goes together with faith and how that works together. Okay, but what I want to show you right now is that the Torah validates.
Let's say you didn't know
and
the
actually
person,
mandates
right?
such
Let's say
an
you had a
approach.
bad experience with the person. Let's say 1 out of those 10 people that are mourning going to a funeral.
Yeah, okay, that's a nuanced situation, right?
That's a
Let's
different
talk about regular
situation. So is that
situations.
person gonna falsify his emotions to satisfy this premise?
Yeah, okay, that's a
But you can see my point.
that's an individual.
Right, that's what I said to
Right,
begin with,
right,
it's individual.
Let's stick with the
Right.
main focus. There's another quote from Maimonides, which is very similar. It is a Torah commandment. This is Hilchot Ta'aniyot, the laws of fasts. It is a Torah commandment to cry out and sound trumpets in the event of any difficulty that arises, which means to pray. There's a commandment to pray, to cry out to God whenever it's difficult. Whenever you're distressed by difficulties, famine, plague, locusts, or the like, cry out to God because of it. Conversely, should the people fail to cry out to God and sound the trumpets, and instead say, what has happened to us is merely a natural phenomenon, and this difficulty is merely a chance occurrence. This is a cruel connection of things. So again, you see the same word cruelty coming up in a similar connection. There it was regarding mourning, here it's regarding prayer.
Right.
Okay. In both cases, the similarity is that the person is saying, there's nothing I can do about it. This is the course of the nature. This is the way the world runs. The world runs by random. Bad things happen just because life sucks. There's no order
But
to things.
I contemplate on myself, and I get very anxiety attacks over it. For instance, I may go back, not just of our people, but slavery among Black people, or person that dies that was a good person. I contemplate over everything, so it really, my little brain cannot even take in all the things that, I don't think we're geared to take in all this, like nowadays, because we hear, I was just saying this on the internet, we hear everything all at once now. It's like many centuries ago, we would just know about where we were.
Locally, right?
Now we know everything, and our
Right.
little pea brains can't
Can handle it,
Can't-
can contain it.
Speak for yourself.
It's too much to contain, right?
compare.
Right.
I'm reading it, and I'm gonna use a very simplistic interpretation of reading this.
Go ahead.
And to me, it just means that if you don't express what you feel, whatever it is that you feel about a difficulty, right? That means that something is, you can call it cruel, but how I would interpret it is that the healthy approach of things is to express what you feel and not to just accept defeat.
It's really
That's why
indifferent.
Let it all out.
Right.
Let it all out.
Right.
But don't we do that
And-
among family?
Right,
And
right,
when we
right.
mourn?
That's the point.
It's
That's really the
indifference,
point.
not, I wouldn't say it's cruelty, it's indifference.
Right. Cruelty and indifference are really, I think they're interchangeable terms here. I think that might be a better translation. You know, this is a translation, you know. The original is achzar, which is usually translated as cruelty, but it could mean indifference. Like you're
But
cold to
we're
it.
Rabbis
Yeah.
sometimes have disagreements among each other, and they can disagree on an interpretation, just like we do. We
Right.
troubleshoot, right? Sometimes when
Right.
we're in learning, you and I,
Right.
if I have a question, you know me, I'm curious, and I always think outside the box sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't agree with what Rambam says. I just think it's a very blanketed statement.
It is. It's very
So
blanket.
you agree with that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's very, this is a general thing, which
Yeah.
means anytime that emotion is the natural response, the natural reaction,
Yeah.
then that's appropriate. The Torah says this is the appropriate approach.
Mm.
Okay, we don't believe in being indifferent because you know we're supposed to be spiritual or big believers, so we're indifferent to tragedy that happens. No, we're supposed to be empathetic to what happens, and it should arouse us.
And it should,
Pain, prayer, outcry.
I don't think we have to be in great pain, though, to emote or emotionalize something.
but on the other hand,
You have to
It has
still
to be
protect
natural. It has to
yourself.
be a natural
It shouldn't be, you shouldn't be up there, you shouldn't be there,
reaction.
something a little bit more level-headed,
Right.
and then.
What does protecting yourself mean, though? Is feeling meaning
emotionalized.
protecting yourself?
What?
what if it's
I didn't
another,
hear what you said.
what if it happens, let's say, okay, let's say right now, it's what happened in Israel. We want everybody to feel for us.
I was
And they're
emotional.
probably saying, why don't you, what do you mean? Look what's happening with the Palestinians. So, and they probably think we're horrible people because we're not, the people that are not on that side, which is really not Palestinian side, it's Hamas. It's not, you know, and And they probably feel like we're horrible people because we're not feeling for what's being
Yeah,
done.
let's
to
stay
them.
on topic though. So how does that connect?
Oh,
Yeah,
because it's talking about crying out for tragedy in
Right,
general.
right, right,
I'm talking about the
Right.
humanity, because we want people,
right.
So-
Anything that bothers us should elicit outcry.
like if we're not
I mean, if you see
understood-
someone crying out to God and saying, God, why are you doing this? God, how, and enough of our suffering. God, what's up with this? Why is there so much evil in this world? Is that outcry legitimate or not?
yes,
Here you
very
go.
I'll
legitimate.
tell you
Torah
what-
commands us that we should cry out to God, say, why is this happening?
I tell you what's a real cry out that affects every single one of us at the same time as Jews. The fact that we are so misunderstood, or by some people, many people, calculated to be misunderstood so that they can justify
Right,
anti-Semitism.
right, right,
And the propaganda, the injustices that we have to face because when we had nothing to do, we didn't start what they started in Israel.
right.
And all of a sudden, it hits us and we're the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, look what
Maybe
happened.
we want peace also, just like them.
Right, okay.
Maybe we would like.
Okay,
to
yeah,
think-
I think we all got it. Mayan, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I think we're all on the same page by now. If you look in your textbook, okay, so let's give some examples. Look in your textbook, page 105. We have here a quote from the first Jew, Abraham, the first Jew. He cried out to God. He says, God, how can you do such a thing? Are you gonna, when this was before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. So Abraham tried finding some good things to say about them. And he says, God, how can you do this? This is unthinkable for you. Are you not a judge of justice? How can you kill the righteous with the wicked? Okay, ultimately, God showed him that there wasn't any righteous person in the whole city, but he cried out like this. Where's the justice? Who else cried out? Moses cried out when he saw the pain of the Jewish people in Egypt. Pharaoh said, from now on, I'm not going to give you any more straw to make the bricks. Till then, they would supply the Jews with the straw to manufacture the bricks. They would use straw for the furnace, I guess, to make the bricks. And then Pharaoh said, no more straw. Now you're going to go collect all the straw yourselves.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to come up with the same amount of bricks, the same quota that you need to come up with every day. And Moshe went out to God and he says, God, why are you doing bad to this people? He cried out to God like that. This
Oh, what
is
did God
pretty
say?
chutzpahdik,
Yeah, that's what.
right?
Well,
God
Moses
said,
did.
you'll see, I'm going to do some big miracles soon.
Yeah, but
Okay,
what?
but we see the outcry is legitimate.
Yeah.
King David in Psalms, in the book of Psalms, full of cries out, Ad matai, till when will you forsake us? Till when will you abandon us? Don't forget about us. These cries, how could you let your people be slaughtered like sheep? The whole book is full of such cries.
David, as a prophet himself, he spoke well. That's the
You
way-
said that Abraham was the first Jew, and yet I understand that the three major, that Muslim, Christianity, and Judaism, they say all lead back to Abraham. Is that so?
Well, they all lead back to Judaism. So,
But Abraham
Abraham was the first Jew.
personified it first, right?
right.
But they
Right.
didn't call them Jews then, right? They called them Israel, they called us Israelites?
Before it was established.
Correct. Yeah. The name of Jesus is a little later.
Yeah.
Came a little
Even
later.
Noah, wasn't really Jewish.
Um,
I found
we have
out.
another text here on page 116 from Jeremiah. It says like this: God, you are always right when I contend with you, yet I will still argue with you. Why does the way of the wicked prosper, and all who deal with treachery enjoy tranquility? I mean, why do good people have it bad and bad people have it good? Why? I know you're going to win the argument, but I'll still argue with you. Why is it like this? And this continues. Mayan, you mentioned earlier from the book of Job, full of this, crying out to God, why is this happening? So
Yeah.
it's definitely a Jewish approach.
I always
And
wanted
what
to.
did-
And it
what's
didn't
the
diminish
answer?
from their faith. It didn't take away their belief.
But
They
no,
remained,
what
they
did
remained
he
righteous.
say?
Were
What
they
did he say?
really able to hear God's words? I always wondered that. I always say to myself, why is it God spoke to them then and now? You know, in other words, did they hear the words or it was telepathic? We don't really know. And yet I wonder why.
If you would know, you'd be a prophet.
I think it was,
What?
If you would know, you'd be a
I
prophet.
think it was telepathic because that's the only means.
Okay, well, let's let's get back to
Yeah.
the topic.
All right, so let's look at one of the first.
Well, you didn't answer, what
Cases.
did God say to him in response to that?
So we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. Let's look at one of the first instances of where we find this outcry in the Torah. This is a story of Moshe, which you probably know, the story of the Exodus from Egypt. You know what's on the picture? This
Which
is
is Moses?
Moses, yes. This is the burning bush.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know anything, you have to tell me, the burning bush is,
The burning bush is where God appeared to Moses for the first time.
oh, and how old was Moses then? Was he grown up?
He was an
adult?
adult, yeah. And God tells Moses, go to the people in Egypt. Now, let's give some background. The Jews were in Egypt for 210 years already. They were in slavery. They were slaves. They had to work hard from morning to night,
For 210 years.
building the big fortresses in Egypt. They were tortured by the Egyptians. I mean, not only in labor, their bodies were controlled by the Egyptians. Their kids were being taken away from them. We don't have to get into the horrors to make them more graphic, but it was very bad. It was very, very bad. Yeah, they threw the
Okay.
boys into the, yeah. And at this time, God comes to Moses, and Moses is outside of Egypt. He's a shepherd, and God appears to him by the burning bush and says, go back to Egypt and tell the Jewish people, I have good news for you. The God of your fathers, the God who loved Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, your grandfathers, he said the time has come that he's going to take you out of Egypt. He's going to redeem you from slavery, and he's going to take you as his nation, and he's going to, you're going to come to Mount Sinai and receive the Torah, and you're going to come to the land of Israel, and it's going to be great. And what is Moses' response? So first he tries to tell God, why don't you send somebody else? Okay, we'll leave that discussion aside. And then he says to God, he says, the Jews are going to ask me, who is the God of your fathers? Which God sent you? What is his name? What should I tell them? And God answers, tell them, I am who I am, or I will be who I will be. That's the answer. This is a little bit of a puzzling story. What is that? What's Moses asking? What is your name? What is the name of the God that sent me? The God of your fathers, whatever his name is. I mean, if the Jews in Egypt knew that they had a God, they knew that there was a God of Abraham, then they don't need Moses to tell him the name.
but they didn't, I thought the Egyptians didn't believe, they worshiped cats.
The Jews in Egypt,
Oh,
the Jews who were in
They
slavery.
were in Egypt first.
Yeah, I mean, why would they ask what's his name? As if they're verifying it? Did they know the name of God? So then Moses also knew the name because he was also from the same tribe. What would he convey to them by saying this is God's name? Maybe a few questions. Why would they ask? Didn't they already know? Didn't Moses know?
I think first and foremost, the religions in the area had, well, in contrast to Judaism back in the days, they had a geographical location God assigned, right? So they had names,
But not
and
the
the
Jews.
names of gods. No, the
They had
Jews
one God.
don't.
The
But
Jews had, if he comes and tells them the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they know who he's talking about. Everyone knows that Abraham proclaimed that there was only one God and he's not physical and he's not tangible. Right? So if he says the God of Abraham, so everybody knows what he's talking about. We know that that's to the
Well, there
exclusion of
were
any
other
other
names-
pagan gods.
There were other names for God. Hashem, what's the other one? Adonai.
Okay.
did they
There's
know
various
though?
commentaries
Did they
on
know
this.
though? But wait, but did they know though? Because back in that time, I don't know how much they were aware of
Right.
Hebrew
but
gods.
you have to look at it in context. The verse says, God tells Moses, go tell the Jews that the God of your fathers has sent me to redeem you from Egypt.
To the Jews,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so now what's missing?
I missed that. I thought,
Yeah.
okay.
Tell them, Hashem Elokei Avotechem Shlachani Aleichem. So Moses asks, they're going to say, what's his name? What kind of? There are several commentaries, there are several interpretations for this.
Oh, they're doubting him then.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, something along those
Sometimes
lines.
there's
Maybe.
misinterpretation, sometimes it's taken out of context, right?
It's a puzzling verse. And
No,
if
but-
Rashi explains something, the Ramban explains something,
No,
Rabbeinu
but-
Bachaya explains,
that's not
everybody
what I'm
explains
saying.
something.
Well,
these
one way I
people
would postulate
interpret
that
They
they
could
were
use-
almost,
could
they were
use-
always,
Second, I can't hear both of you at the same
They're not in
time.
harmony, then we can assume that maybe some things are misinterpreted or improperly written out of context.
Okay, let's see. Yeah,
Is that
what
possible?
I would assume that because they were in Egypt for so long, potentially they started getting distracted from their beliefs, and they asked him who this person is, who God is, because they had too many influences that of other non-monotheistic, like transcendentally, right? Beyond time and space type of belief, which is
Right.
what Judaism is. And they were like, oh, we need to know what this God is and who is it named and what is where is he located, because that's like external influence of like Egyptian culture.
Right. That's okay. That's perhaps another one of the simple meanings of this. Right. Okay. Well, let's see. We have one interpretation here, which is relevant, which is why we're bringing it in. We have it in text 5 in the textbook. If you want to look inside, I'll say it. I'll say it.
Turn to 5?
I'll say it outside. If you want to see the words inside, this is just a quote from a longer essay from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who explains it like this. He's based on Rashi. He explains it like this: when God's names are not just names; they're titles that are descriptions, right? Like the generous God, the benevolent God, the powerful God. They're describing various virtues that he possesses, right? Different characteristics about him. Each name describes another characteristic. When the Jews are going to ask, what is his name? What they mean to ask is, what virtue is he going by? Which behavior is he using? What means is he using right now when he's talking to you? What kind of God is this? What kind of behavior does this God have?
Benevolent.
And what they mean to say is like this.
It was a he or she, we don't know.
We know it's a he.
Well, let's leave that aside.
You would say that, Allison.
What
Such
the
a feminist.
meaning of their question is like this. It's very relevant. So here's what they're asking. They're asking if this God really loves us, if he's going to no problem. If he really loves us, if he's going to take care of us, then where was he until now? For the past 210 years, we're suffering. God let us.
Yeah,
God abandoned
I was
us.
gonna say that actually.
He's letting our kids get slaughtered. He's
Right.
letting us be in
Yes.
slavery for
Why
210 years, and
now?
now he's
Why
going to
now?
redeem us. What kind of behavior is this?
Yeah,
That's
why
what they mean.
now?
What's his name? What kind of attribute is this? And what's really underlying their question is: so now he's promising to redeem us. Can we really trust him? Maybe he'll abandon us again. I mean, if he could act to us this way, how do we know what's going to happen in the future? And that's really what they're asking. You saw our suffering, and you just ignored us.
But David advocated for them, as did Moses and Abraham.
So Moses is asking God,
Yeah.
as soon as I come and tell them that the God of your fathers sent me,
Yeah.
they're going to right away ask, where was he until now? How did he allow us to suffer? This is going to be their immediate reaction. Oh, really? There's a God? We gave up already on him. We're here for 210 years. We thought God forgot about us. We gave up on any hope.
Were these people,
Don't tell us that
were
he's
these
gonna
people
redeem us.
very pious people at the time?
I don't know if they were pious. They were oppressed. They were so oppressed. They were
Because
so
of course-
overwhelmed by the slavery. They weren't
Yeah.
even able to think of.
He wants them to believe in him. So if he wants that, they want to see some justification that he's on their side.
It's kind of a miracle then that they were.
That they survived.
So they're trying to understand where is it coming from, like what made it appear, right?
Numbers, I think,
why suddenly, what's the goal of this? What's the outcome of this?
I don't know if it's so much that they're asking why is now different. but they're asking, um,
What should make us believe in him?
they're doubting God's benevolence.
Right.
They're doubting the trust that they can have. How can we trust a God that just abandoned us like that and let us suffer for so long? And now you want us to trust him that he's going to take us out of Egypt. Maybe our enslavers in Egypt are better. At least here we have some, we get some food. We don't know what's going to happen next.
So there was no religion there at all, right?
But through Joseph,
They worshipped idols. Yeah.
through Joseph, Jacob, there was much more understanding and there was, the faith started to develop. Right?
In Egypt, yeah, but it's
Look
Shvachim
what Jacob,
Isis.
look what, Jacob went through. In the.
Okay, so what does Moses says?
So that's what Moses is
I
asking.
will be
Moses is
as I
asking
will be.
God, what is his name? What kind of behavior did you have? And God answers, I will be as I will be. What does that mean?
What is that in
As
Hebrew?
I
Sorry.
am. I will be what as I am.
Look at the screen. I will be with them now as I will be with them in future hardship. God is saying, I didn't forget them. I didn't ignore them. I will be with them. And I will always be with them.
Praise God.
Now, what happened to the suffering? I'm not explaining what's with why you're
He's not
suffering.
even feeding.
But what I'm
into it.
saying is, don't think that you were ignored or abandoned.
Right.
I was with you every single step of the way. Like King David says in Psalms, Imo anochi b'tzara, I am with them in their pain. When Jews have a distress, God's with them. When there's a tragedy happening among the Jewish people, God is suffering the same tragedy. B'chol tzaratam lo tzar. When they have a tragedy, it's a
But
tragedy for God as
But
well.
Mayor, if he can intervene, why wouldn't he, to avoid
Excellent
that
question.
suffering?
That's the next thing we have to
But why do
address.
they even
But the
need
first thing is to know that it's not abandonment. We're not lonely in our suffering. God's suffering with us. What makes
Yeah,
him
we know
suffer?
that.
He's suffering the worst suffering. When a parent sees a child suffering,
But that doesn't satisfy the question. that I asked.
Do you think that
You know
in
what I mean?
those days, because of
Yeah,
what
we'll
happened
get there.
later on in life, with Christianity, do you think that the Israelites were wanted to see a God in human form, to believe in him?
they would definitely prefer it, but there's no such option, There's no such option.
Yeah,
It is puzzling, it is, even if you're a believer, to hear this and to hear all that suffering that went on, it makes me think and it makes me empathize with those
Makes
people.
not right.
And it
Wasn't
makes
God-
me
What's God
think-
answering? God's not
Makes-
answering.
Makes
He's
me
not
think that
answering.
we have almost like we have several gods, when we know we aren't the only one who was here then, like he's here now. But the same thing in another way is
You mean the
today.
same God who's there then and is with us now?
yeah, and the same,
Right.
And you
yeah, and
see
you
some
still have suffering.
parallels.
You still have
You
suffering.
still see the parallels, right?
Right,
In this
absolutely.
latest thing.
Absolutely.
So how do you
That's
judge
today's
that?
Holocaust? Right. There you go. So that's the
Same
next thing.
question.
Right. So that's the next thing we have to discuss. So why indeed would God do it? Now let me ask you a philosophical question.
Hmm.
If a doctor has two treatments, two possibilities how to treat the patient. One of them is more painful and one of them is less painful.
Mhm.
Which one is he going to choose? They have the same
Huh?
outcome.
Less
That's
painful.
painful.
You hope so. If he's a good doctor, right? If he's a kind doctor, he'll choose the less painful one,
Yeah.
right? If God has two choices, how to run the world, how to treat us Jews in a good way or in a harsh way, which one would he choose?
I would think you would choose the good one.
Choose a better way, right? As long as if you can reach the same outcome with less pain,
Well,
then you would
I
choose
know,
it,
but isn't
right?
that the darkness?
But let him
It's the
finish.
darkness as versus light. The pain is the
Right,
darkness.
right. If God has two ways of doing the same thing, giving us good in a way of darkness or giving us good in a way of light, which one would he choose?
Well, you want light, but
You
they
choose
say
the way
you
of
can, I
light,
think I
right?
read it in it was from Boharian. I got this pamphlet about a prayer, and it says if you can only if you can see darkness, then you'll see in other words, you have to go through the darkness in order to see the light.
Right.
You have to go through
All right,
difficulty.
I wanted him to
Yeah.
respond
Right, so
to
let's,
an important question for all of us.
Okay.
Good. So the first thing is, you see here, the question, if God is present, how could he watch me suffer? What's the answer? God never leaves my side. He suffers with me. He's not watching me suffer from far. He's with me in the suffering. That's the first point that we have to remind ourselves. God's with
Well,
us in the
sometimes
suffering.
you suffer because your loved one is suffering and you're watching, you're suffering because, let's say someone has a terminal disease and is racked with cancer and pain and you're watching this, so you're suffering with that person and you're probably both the friend or family member is probably staying along with the person suffering, like, why, how could there be a God to make me suffer for so long? You know, I didn't do anything, and it's hard to rationalize that, because the suffering is not like you're suffering for a few minutes or a day, it could be suffering for years.
Right.
And it's a very,
Right. So now we're gonna get to that question. So now we're gonna get that. But before we get to that, did God answer Moses? Did he give him a rationalization? Did he justify why the Jews had to suffer, or he just said, "I'm with them in their pain"?
That's all he said.
He just said, "I'm with them in their pain." He didn't give them a rationalization. Why? Why not?
there were no answers, really?
So then why is God doing it?
He told them, I am with you now, I will always be with
I'll
you.
be with you in your suffering. Good. But why is he doing it? Why is he doing the suffering?
Why is he? saying-
Does God have the option to give us less suffering?
I would
Sure he
think so.
does. Sure he does. He could do anything. So why doesn't he?
Why?
He put certain burdens on our backs to also to promote more faith.
So the answer is like
And to
this.
develop our faith more, so
Yeah, but
that's part
it's-
of the reason.
Yes, but it's sometimes you see someone that could be a perpetual criminal, a murderer, a savage,
Mhm.
and they could live a long life.
Right. So
Well,
let's
it may
say
not,
like
and
this.
then somebody that never did anything like that will suffer.
Why don't you
Yeah.
tell
I'm
us?
just
man?
gonna take a 1-minute break and then we'll continue.
Okay,
1 minute break, like Tony.
I just want to read this. Listen, let me just say something. This is why Christians need to hold on to him, you know, because they feel they need that human form to visualize. They need it. Because like some believe in saints, some, you know.
I didn't want to tell you about the subject matter. Because if you didn't want to come, I realize it's important.
Oh, I would come.
Really? I didn't want to
I
tell
made
you.
it come.
I didn't want to scare you. But I knew about this topic before.
He said he emails it to me too.
Oh, we did? Oh. It's amazing that everybody got sick before this. You notice that?
Wait.
You don't think that's kind of ironic? I asked you something.
I want to read this.
Mhm.
I should take it. I didn't realize there was hundreds of years. They were in Egypt.
Everybody got sick except us.
I got sick too.
I'm making a point to you. Are you listening to me? Every single one of them called out sick for this. Maybe it's the weather. I always have these questions. If you think I don't accept every single thing. I always have questions about why this, why that.
Since you're a rabbi, will you allow us to question you? But however, when you growing up and you had your rabbi, were you allowed to ask the questions too?
Oh, sure. He
I
loved
mean-
it. He loved it when we asked questions.
Because
Rabbis love it
I
when
always do
students
that.
ask questions.
Even in yeshiva, we did that. Yeshiva, they promote that.
Because if you ask questions, that's how you learn,
yeah, I mean, that's how I
Right.
feel. I just said
right?
with me.
I mean, people who get offended when you ask them questions, it's, I guess, because they're not comfortable with an
Insecure,
answer. They don't know the
insecure.
answer.
What
or
I like
something,
is
you know?
that you're not judgmental. See, that's the problem with,
You can't be a
Some-
teacher if you are.
no, but some,
Right. Right.
you know, if some will criticize if others are not religious, because then they turn away altogether.
Right.
And then have nothing. And because you feel if you're not doing ABC, now, I didn't mourn the way I should have with my mother. I know she wouldn't have minded, but I did the best I could. And I feel like I'm mourning her every day. And I try to do the right thing. I try to do it for everyone.
Right.
And, you know, we live in a neighborhood that's very diverse, so if somebody needs something. I mean, people today, you know, things have gotten so bad that if you hold the door for somebody, they say, oh, thank you. When years ago, that was expected. You know, going over to an elderly person,
Right.
holding the door.
Chivalry is lost.
Well,
Okay,
they
yeah,
dro-
let's
I'm
go. Yeah,
saying,
let's go.
like-
Okay.
Yeah,
We're getting sidetracked.
Okay. Let's get
Can
back.
you
Okay.
stay on that, Senator? Because
Yes, yes.
you have an answer that's.
But I'll
much
tell
more-
you, yeah.
You have more education.
Yeah, but let me say what I'm gonna say though. What I'm gonna say is, like I told you earlier, I don't give an answer. And I'm just gonna explain to you. Basically, I don't want, if you walk out today with an answer, then I failed. I want you to walk out of today dissatisfied with the answer, but to understand why you're dissatisfied. Appreciate why you're dissatisfied.
Yeah.
Appreciate why you don't
Because
have an
there
I
is
answer.
know what you mean, because there's no absolute
Instead of
answer.
dodging the question, to understand why there's no
we say we can't
satisfying answer.
comprehend all the things that God does, or does not.
And you
do.
wanna know
We-
something?
It's beyond
We have
our-
finite minds next to his.
Yeah, that's what I said,
Beautiful.
peace sign.
We are, no.
You're both saying, you're both saying what I'm
Yeah.
about to say.
Yeah.
Imagine someone walks into a room. He sees a person unconscious, helpless, unaware of what's going on. There are a bunch of people who look like criminals all standing around him with masked faces, with knives in their hands, cutting him open. Person's gushing blood.
Oh, God.
What would the person think walking into this room? Where did I just walk into? Did I just walk into hell? What's going on here? This person is helpless. He's vulnerable, and all these masked men are cutting him up. And then somebody tells the person, these are surgeons. These are surgeons. They're taking a tumor out of him.
Oh,
All of a sudden, the whole thing switched around. The person is vulnerable, unconscious. He's in the middle of a surgery. They're saving his life.
I thought it was.
They're
something else. I
masked
thought-
because they're
I
doctors.
thought it was something else.
Something out of Twilight Zone.
Right, okay, so this is an analogy that the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, wrote to someone who asked him a question about a big tragedy. Maybe it was the Holocaust or some other tragedy. And the Rebbe told him, I don't know the explanation, but I know I'm like that observer who's walking into the operating room and he doesn't know that it's an operating room.
I understand.
I don't see the end goal of the operation. I don't see why this is life-saving. I don't see why this is good. To me, this looks like a bunch of murderers that are slicing a person open. It looks difficult, it looks painful. It looks like a person is gushing blood and it's horrifying to see. But I trust the surgeon, which is God, that I'm sure he's doing something life-saving. He's doing something good. How is that? I don't know. Why? Because I'm walking in the middle of the picture. I only have a half a picture. I only see just this image. I don't see the before and after. Or another example, the Rebbe gave a similar idea. You see someone walks into the hospital and he looks like he's healthy, and he walks out of the hospital and he's full of bandages and he's walking on crutches. And you think, what did they do to him? This must be a place where they make people sick. And then you realize, no, they just helped him, and now he has to go to rehab a little bit, but then they really helped him. We see half a picture. We don't see the full situation. And that's why our interpretation is very limited. Now, how limited is our interpretation of reality? It's as limited as
you
we
let it
are.
be.
It's as limited as we are.
But sometimes, yes, but some people are more limited than others. Like I like
True.
philosophical.
Absolutely.
See, I like, it's religion, but I love philosophy because, because
Now,
religion.
how much higher is God's perception of reality? A little bit higher than ours or infinitely higher?
Infinite.
Infinitely. Because God's infinite. He has, in his perception, not only the bigger picture of what's going on with us, not only long term, not only he sees us last year and he knows what's going to happen next year, he sees a picture that's infinitely greater that in a million years we'll never be able to comprehend. He made this whole thing. Or let's give another example.
You
Someone
also-
walks into a factory and he sees a bunch of machines running beautifully. And he sees everything is so systematic. The conveyor belt that's transferring the product from one machine to the next machine is beautiful. And he's like, wow, must have been such a genius who created this. And then they tell him, okay, now come, you're going to work in this room. And they give him instructions what to do. And they give him very detailed instructions. You have to do exactly like this and exactly like that. And he doesn't understand why is this important? Why such details? It's okay if I won't do this detail just like it says in the manual. I'll switch around a little bit here, a little bit there. What's going to happen? The whole factory is going to start messing up because every little bit is important.
Sure.
Now, he doesn't understand that, but he must trust that the one who made the factory, the same way you see that some things are running good because obviously there was a great genius mind behind it, that same genius mind is running everything. You should realize from the fact that you don't understand, that itself should help you realize that it's much bigger than you can understand, that you're not able to comprehend
Just
it.
like when you people, you were saying about doctors, well, people have said, doctor, oh, he's a god, but God gave him that ability. That's what people don't, like, if I
Right.
bring joy, like with my art, it's not the greatest art in the world, but I don't think of it as me. I got the ability.
Right.
I do have some notion, some maybe small notion of whatever degree my interpretation reads to.
Yeah.
And that's
tell us.
that God owns our heart. You call
Yeah.
that in Hebrew again, Shoma?
The neshama, yeah.
Shama. Okay, so I think that being that he owns that, all of us, and he created that for us,
Yeah.
in our next life, he will do what he wants to do. And I think whatever we do or do not do in this life carries us over to, if there is another one for us in the afterlife. And I think everything is contingent on that.
That's one of the,
And
that's one of them.
how it gets transferred and manifested is up to us and what we do in this.
But yeah,
life.
that's
Do we
one
believe
point to
in
keep
the
in mind.
afterlife?
Yeah,
Do we
absolutely,
believe in
yes,
the
yes.
afterlife?
It's a Jewish faith.
I just want to.
They took it from the Jews.
No, but I wanted to hear him expound
They took it
on
from the
that.
Jews.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So there is. like-
Absolutely, absolutely. That's 100% true. That's one of the facets is the afterlife, but it's not limited to that.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying on the basis, it can give us, shed some light on a lot of things that happen here, because this is not the final solution.
Right,
Whatever he does or he doesn't do,
right.
there is more.
There's so
after.
much more.
So much
So
more.
much more.
Okay, but
And
why?
and we will not know until he is
Until we get
ready
there.
to share.
Right, absolutely.
There are people of
Right.
different faiths that have said to me, well, it's all one God. So my question is not even what they said, is why is it if we were all meant to be one religion and one culture, we would have been. God obviously created all kinds of people, and that kind of confuses the issue on so many levels, because we have so many cultures, different religions, civilizations that claim that they were before our civilization, science that says they go back millions of years, which baffles me. So like, how do you make sense of things?
Right, let's leave that aside though.
Okay.
We're talking about suffering. And so we have to know that there's a bigger
want to
picture. There's a bigger picture, and that we're not talking only about the afterlife, we're talking about this world. God only does what's best for us.
You what?
God only does what's best for us. What's best for us?
Even suffering?
Yes.
Even bad suffering?
You know how I know? Because if a doctor has to choose between a painful medicine and a easy medicine, which one is he going to choose? If he has the option.
You mean painful for the patient?
If he has two treatments for the patient, one more painful, one less painful, which is he going to
Well,
choose?
less painful.
Less painful. God
If
is
he's a good doctor.
God. Why would God choose for us a harder life if he could give us an easier life? And he could, because he could do anything.
Yeah,
He
but
could
it's-
give us an
but
easier
it,
life.
but it isn't always the case. So people get killed every day, or
Why do bad things happen to good people? Like
Right,
that,
right.
Harold Kushner. Harold
I'm-
Kushner.
I'm saying evidence that it must be that what we're going through is in God's eyes good. From God's perception, it's good. Why? Because if God wouldn't think this is good for us, then would he do it to us? Then why would he do it to us?
Is it that we have to think that or we really believe it?
We really believe that.
See, I'll give you an example, because, and you probably know about this. There's an Orthodox family, I don't know if they were Hasidim or not, but they had a lot of children, and they, you know what I'm saying about work, they left the burner
On a
on,
fire, right?
and all those children died.
Right.
Not everyone, but
Brooklyn,
most of them.
Right.
How do you
the
How do
father,
you make, I mean, I know, to
Yeah,
me,
none
of
of
course,
that.
my belief that if that's the case, don't even use the stove, make sandwiches,
Don't
that,
use the
because it really,
candles.
it really upsets.
It was a religious home.
Yeah, but
The
it really
father came
upsets
back to
people.
a burnt
Like,
house,
You left the
Like
candles
5 children,
unattended. Yeah.
I
5
know,
children
but
were
I'm
killed, and a
saying-
mother.
you know, to me, it could have been helped, and you get, and maybe it sounds terrible to say, but, you know, they could have made, they didn't have to cook anything, make sandwiches or whatever. But it happened, and like, how does a person like that go on with their life, losing so many children?
The father
Right,
lost.
right.
And that's.
He was on
Right,
vacation, the
right,
father.
right. So let's get to that in a minute. Let's get to that in a minute. But first, let's clarify this premise. God is good, as it says many times in the Torah, that God only does for us good. Is God able to give us the best life? Is he able
Yes.
to? He's able to. Does he want to give us the best life?
Yeah,
Does he not care about us? Does he abandon us to suffering, or does he care about us? He cares about us.
No.
He suffers with us. So for sure he would want to give us the best.
but how do people know he suffers with us? They don't hear it, how would they
I
know?
think
God
it's
says it in the
empathy, it's
Torah.
empathy.
Because God told
Oh,
us
so you
that.
have to read
Because
it.
God told us that. We
You
read
have
it,
to
we
read
saw it
it.
earlier, right? We
Yeah,
saw
you
it on the
have to read- you
presentation,
have to
right?
But
pray
if he
now.
could prevent some of the suffering,
Then he would. Any suffering God is able to prevent, he does. He does. The only things he gives us is good. We don't perceive it as good. Because we see knives that are cutting the body, we don't see that it's life-saving. We see the
but how
crutches,
is
we
the
don't see
Holocaust, how is the Holocaust life-saving?
we only see the bad part of the Holocaust. We see it as horrifying.
What good is it?
We can see it that it's good. We can see that it's good.
Mayor,
Yeah.
there's so many people that passed away, perished. It was an unjust war. And what purpose would?
What's with the Holocaust in our generation, the 2023
But I'm
Holocaust?
talking about them.
Yeah.
What purpose did it serve? How does he justify that? That's never been answered.
Right.
Well, that's in our time, but actually Rabbi
Right.
Konigsberg had said to me about the Jews, they've had things happen before, like,
Of course they did. All
yeah,
through
and I
our,
was reading, you know,
You know what
It's
this
just
is? What's this? It's a tapestry.
what's
See-
it?
You see how beautiful this is?
Garden of Eden.
It's a garden, right? Somebody's sewing this beautiful tapestry.
Oh.
Trees and a house, right? If you look from the other side, what do you see?
Okay.
Globe.
You don't see. You just see a bunch of, I don't know. It's
It looked like a
just
map.
threads. Yeah, maybe a map.
Well, it looks.
This is the
decayed.
other side. You know, when you sew it, so on one side you see just the stitch. Here you
Oh,
see
I
the
see.
stitches.
Yeah, I see.
The first side you see beautiful. The next side you just see stitches.
Well, it's like
Okay.
the fall comes and. they
God's
die.
view and our view.
I see.
The artisan is making this. He sees it as beautiful, but somebody looking from the other side doesn't see it. We only see a limited perception of things.
Mayor, how versed was, well, not only versed, the Rebbe, was he totally in touch with all that was mentioned?
The Rebbe lost a brother in the Holocaust. He lost a sister-in-law and a brother-in-law. He lost a grandmother. Okay, so
But did he
was
agree still with
very
this?
he was very consciously, emotionally aware of the horror of the Holocaust.
Okay. But he followed this line of reasoning.
I'm repeating his words regarding the Holocaust. Now, this is actually unique to the Rebbe because many other scholars tried giving rationalizations to the Holocaust, and the Rebbe always said, "Don't even go there. Don't even go there.
Right.
If you try justifying it, then, like we said earlier, somebody who doesn't mourn is cruel. If you try being complacent with the tragedy, that's not good. That's not a good
Or
Jewish
if you're
virtue.
someone,
You should feel the horror. You should feel the pain.
like if somebody like years ago, the head of Iran denied the Holocaust, my feeling is, what are you even giving? It's like a child that's trying to get your attention.
I had such
Why are
wonderful,
you, wait a second, why are you, if somebody says that, why do you even, you ignore them, you don't
Right.
acknowledge them.
You're smart. Yeah. What
Yeah.
did he say?
I had such wonderful, I mean, my father wouldn't say it, but his mother was like a goddess. She was the most beautiful woman, the most generous to people, and you cannot even imagine. The father, my mother even said he wasn't as strict as what your father said, because before she knew my father, she would go over there and she didn't know that it was my father's father.
Right.
And she asked him for donations and he gave quite a bit. And she didn't even know him. She didn't even know
Right.
at that time. But anyway, besides
Right.
that, is most of the days since they passed on, I have the pictures. I don't stop thinking about them, how much I lost with not having them around.
Right. Wow.
And I honor them, especially Shabbos. I have the pictures right over there. But of course, my first commitment is to God, to pray for and Shabbos.
Right.
Remember, I only did this in the last few years, observe Shabbos like that.
Amazing. Yeah.
But anyway,
Amazing.
I honor them continuously, and I always say, there were such good people, we could have used people like that, more people like that.
Right.
And there's so many others, I'm sure the Rebbe's family was like that.
Right. Right. Right.
But God also gave people free will, right? Supposedly,
Well, of course,
but
Let me say something. The prophet Yeshaya, the prophet Isaiah says that when the Messiah comes, which is going to be very soon, very imminent, the days of the final redemption, the Jewish people will turn to God and we will say, "Thank you, God, for giving us suffering."
Mm.
Which means to say, why are we going to say thank you for giving us suffering? Because we're going to understand. When Mashiach comes, we're going to understand the meaning for everything. We're going to understand
Only
why.
when we pass away, we'll understand.
So this is not referring to when he passed away. This is referring to when Mashiach comes.
Yeah.
We're going to understand why the Holocaust happened. We're going to understand why we have family suffering. We're going to understand why we have health issues. We're going to understand everything that happened to us. We're going to understand why, and we're going to see how it was for our benefit. And then we're going to say thank you. But that's only when Mashiach comes. Today, it's impossible to understand it. It's beyond our
So the
comprehension.
Moshiach-
Messiah is God or Moses?
Oh, he's a servant, not.
The
Moses.
Messiah is gonna be a rabbi who God's gonna send to do the
I
redemption.
see, but the
Mayor
point,
knows who it is,
you
but he's
say
not telling
soon,
us.
when you say soon is not our lifetime.
Why not?
Why not?
Because people probably thought that our forefathers probably thought the same thing.
It could happen today.
Allison,
It's gonna be sudden.
you need to have more of an open mind.
Well, that's why I'm asking. If I wasn't,
You have to
I am,
learn.
I'm
You have to
asking.
learn. You have to learn. She's
You have to
learning.
learn.
The Messiah could come today, could come yesterday, could come tomorrow.
But the point is, the Messiah is just going to be for us.
It's just gonna be sudden.
It's
It's gonna be for the
Everybody.
whole world. It's gonna be bring peace to the whole world. When Messiah
But
comes,
the
the whole world's gonna become good.
But there are people that have other faiths that have nothing to do with what.
They have no choice.
Like,
They're gonna be inspired to join when Messiah comes. There's gonna be no more evil in the world. There's gonna be no more bad. People are just gonna be good people.
Don't you want to
Everybody's gonna
look
see the
forward to that?
presence of God.
See?
Goodness
I
is
told
just
you
gonna
that
be
a while
so.
back, but you didn't
Yeah.
believe me, I think. right?
but-
Goodness is gonna be so widespread that everybody's just gonna be inspired
Really,
to do
but
the
it
right
seems like we're
thing.
going in the other direction.
That's right. But when Messiah comes, it's all gonna switch around.
I mean, like,
Right.
I feel like, how far are we going? Now we're going with, history is being taken away
What,
because of AI.
You know what the Rebbe said about
photoshopping.
that? You know what the Rebbe said about all the way the world is derailing? Was that it's the last breath. You know, just before something dies, it gives a last cry. That's the world. The evil in the world is giving its last cry, so it's
Yeah.
trying its hardest.
Right.
But it's all going to diminish soon.
But what is the consensus of the rabbis that you meet with? When do they think that time will come?
Imminent. Every day we're
Yeah, but that
expecting
doesn't
it.
tell me when, exactly, when precisionally, when,
It's
can't say.
it's past due. It's
Oh, it
past
is?
due. Yeah.
So what's
Yeah,
the
so it's
delay?
any day.
Why is the delay?
One more deed. One more mitzvah.
Okay, so
One
let's
more
do a
mitzvah.
mitzvah.
One more
tzedakah.
mitzvah. That's it. Let's go. Let's give some tzedakah.
I don't even see why the people
Where's
asked
the
his
pushka?
name. What is his name?
Oh,
And he's
So
God.
let's repeat that. So they knew he was God. When they asked what's his name, they meant what behavior. They meant what kind of behavior is this to abandon the Jews for 210 years?
Oh,
And
why
that's when
now?
and that's when God answered, right? And that's when God answered, I was with them in their suffering. You know what else Rambam says, Maimonides? He says a person should always look at the world as if it's a balanced scale, precisely equal.
Okay,
If a scale is equal, you put on one straw and it weighs, it tips it to one side.
Okay.
So the world is always equal, good and evil. You do one deed, you do one mitzvah, you tip the whole world's scale to good, and you bring the redemption. You understand? So we always have to look at it as if Mashiach's about to come, we have to do one mitzvah, and that'll be the
Awesome.
mitzvah to
Stop
bring it.
nagging me,
Okay.
please.
Yeah. I also would you do at home. It's tzedakah. It's called
Tzedakah, yeah,
I always
yeah,
think of
yeah.
when my mother said the
Beautiful.
pishkas.
The pushka is in Yiddish. The pishka is in Yiddish.
Right, well, yeah.
It's
She
okay.
worries about
I
it.
don't mind. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
My mother was telling me how she says to me always at that time, she says, you know, you're just like your father. I'm such a worrywart, and you and your father are the same. You're always positive about everything. I said, I have to be.
Right. Okay,
Like
let's
you're going
wrap it
to-
up.
Like
It's
you're
the same
going
way.
to, yeah, like you're going to Israel.
Right.
I would be you know how many people like me are terrified, even before this?
Right.
If you said to an Israeli, I've said to Israeli, it's so dangerous. No, it's more dangerous in New York. So,
Yeah.
but you're doing, because you're a man of God and you're going, but
No, he has an obligation.
I have to say, since I don't have children, and I don't know Hebrew, but I was thinking, if I didn't have Hank in my life and it was, my parents are not around, worry about me, I would go to help.
Right. Right. This analogy of the surgery, of the surgeon. So I just experienced it this week. I was taking the kids, all 3 kids had to get shots at the doctor. They have to get their flu shots, or this shot, or that shot. They have to get a bunch of shots. When they're kids, they have to get a lot of shots. So the kids are yelling and screaming. They don't like shots. They remember last time. They're traumatized from the shots. Yeah, first they prick them, they take their blood from their finger, and then they give them a shot. And the kids are crying.
Painful.
It's painful. What are you going to say to them?
It'll
So,
go away soon.
so we could say to the kid, we could try saying, it would be a mistake to
To
tell
say
them.
Hashem is with you?
So let's see. It would be a mistake to tell them, it's for your good, because now that you get this shot, so later on, 3 months down the line, you're not going to get sick, and then you'll have fever and you'll be in bed for a week.
Yeah,
So
they're
better
too
get
young
the
to
shot now.
understand.
They can't understand that. They can't make the calculation. They don't have the mind to grasp
You
the
have to
long-term
tell them as much as
investment,
they understand.
right? You can't. So what can you tell them? There's no justification. There's nothing that you're going to tell them that's going to justify the pain that they're going through now. They can't comprehend, why does it have to be painful? I'd rather just go home and be comfortable and not have this shot. What's the only thing you can tell them? You can tell them, it really hurts you. I'm so sorry. And cry with them, sympathize with them. That's all. And say, so we say, I'm sorry, Ziskait. I'm so, it hurts. I'm really sorry. This is what we have to do. And that's all. In his mind, in his world, no justification is going to be good enough to satisfy his question, why do I have to go through this? And that's why.
That's the way we are.
And that's why, as a rabbi, I won't answer the question, why did it happen? You know why? Because when a person experiences pain, rationalizing it, you could say explanations. Say, well, God has your long-term plan in mind, and he knows what's really good for you. And in God's world, this is good. All these are beautiful explanations.
Yeah.
But when a person is in pain, the pain is what's overwhelming him. The pain is what he feels. The pain that's his reality. That's what he experiences. Telling them explanations, in their world, they're not able to contain anything more than the pain. In their world, they're not able to understand the pain.
Nobody can understand, but it was like,
So what's going to happen if somebody asks me, but Rabbi, I really, really do want an answer. I really want to hear. I'm curious. I'm not asking from a place of pain. I'm asking from a place of curiosity. What is your explanation? What's going to happen if I'm going to start explaining it? You know what's going to happen? The message I'm sending is that you are in a state of pain and nothing can be justified. But I'm not in your state of pain. By me, a justification could be accepted. And so I'm able to rationalize it. In other words, I don't feel the pain as strong as you do, so that's why I'm able to rationalize it. You feel the pain very strongly, you're obsessed with it, you're overwhelmed by it, so you can't justify it, but I could rationalize it. So all I'm expressing is a lack of sympathy. That's all.
Yeah,
right?
because they're not walking in their shoes.
Exactly. And that's why I'd rather be sympathetic and dodge the question than answer the question and show a lack of sympathy. In the world of the sufferer, there's no room for explanation. even if the explanation is objectively right, it's
Sure.
inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's like coming
I
to
agree.
somebody as soon as his relative passed away and starting to comfort them right away. It's out of place. It's inappropriate. Right now they're feeling pain.
Like
right?
I have with my son, you know, I shared a lot of that with you.
Right. Exactly.
And now I told you I have dialogue. I told you I got
Yes,
together
yes, yes.
Thanksgiving.
Oh, I
He
didn't know you got
responds to
together.
every-
Beautiful.
He responds to every
Beautiful.
note that I write.
Beautiful. Did it go good when you got
It
together?
went well, yeah, he was.
Didn't
he was-
end abruptly.
No, it was
Beautiful.
actually very good, and
We
not
would
only
really
that,
like you. I
Baruch
always wish you
Hashem.
would come.
his
Beautiful.
mother was
Beautiful.
cooperative, and she wants us.
Beautiful.
She seems to want us to,
Very nice.
because if something happens to her, he's gonna need me.
Right, right,
But even then, I love him dearly. I didn't lose any love for him when I saw him.
right, right.
I said, give me a hug, you know, I was,
Beautiful.
you know, I had to
Beautiful.
hold back from calling. It was such
Beautiful.
a beautiful thing to meet with him again, heart to heart.
Very
He
nice.
wasn't demonstrative like he used to be, but he shows his interest when I talk about people's losses. Like Naomi was sick for a while, Allison was sick. Oh, please give them my regards. I'm so sorry she lost her cats. Anyway, he seems to have changed. in a way.
Right, right.
I remember we were
Beautiful.
talking about God has
Yeah.
to work in him.
Yeah, yeah. That's very good, very
We
good.
pray enough.
Our prayers help.
You think our prayers help?
Hank, if your prayers until now help this much, can you imagine if you pray even more?
I did. What can I-
That's all.
Even you prayed.
That's all. I'm talking about the tefillin. If we put on tefillin once a week and it works so good, if we put on tefillin more, you know what we'll do? We'll do even better.
I had him, you know, Allison with the Rebbe. He went to the gravesite and he sent them the message. to-
Oh.
Yeah,
to,
yeah. I
uh,
wrote to the Rebbe the
to
name
pray-
several times. Yeah,
Pray for good health for him.
yeah.
That
There you
was
go.
amazing.
There you go.
That was
Yeah.
a wonderful.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was a blessing. It was like suddenly, it's almost like I was free.
So
My
yeah, so
heart
as
was-
so I would recommend as a
You know,
friend, I'd recommend not even as a rabbi, but as a good advice, I recommend. If you see how much good it does, put on tefillin even more. It will bring you so much more
do
good.
you have spilled
I
it
don't
at
Bring
have
you
home?
it,
even
so
more
I
good.
don't- I never know.
Do you know, I never heard of
You
it
have to-
until
you have to
he told me
purchase
he
one, you
wore
have to
it
purchase
for
one,
his
yeah.
grandmother.
Yeah,
I never heard of it, the
Yeah.
words before.
yeah.
Um,
I have a
Yeah.
problem with putting it on. Problem.
What do you mean?
well, but you know,
Oh, with the learning
It
how
has
to
to
do
be
it.
done just right.
So, fine. So we'll learn how to do it. We'll figure out. We'll take notes on how to do it instead of me helping you every time. We'll
because I could
learn how
tell
to do
you,
it yourself.
being with him
Yeah.
almost 31 years.
It's not hard. It's not hard. Yeah,
The devotion of a father, like, you know, fathers used to be on the back burner. You know, the mother would take care of everything, the father was busy, but he always did for his son, always sensitive to his son. He also, his father was busy working all the time, and even
Temperamental.
when he wasn't so sensitive to him, you know, because he wasn't scholarly, he wasn't academic, and instead of encouraging, you know, they didn't. But anyway, but he is the opposite with Ben. He loved Ben.
Right.
He was always extremely sensitive to
Play
him.
basketball.
But I mean, I'm talking about and you know, so it's when a child does that, you know, that's the thing in life that we don't realize now what we do, and then later when you have your regrets, there's nothing you can do about it. You could pray that God could maybe give you some comfort, but nothing can change
Right.
if you've, because I have, like with my father, certain, you know, not as close, very close with my mother. But I'm saying, if you don't speak to, a lot of children do this to their parents.
Right. Isolate.
And they don't care about that. And,
Yeah. It's not
And,
good. It's not good.
you know, that's what I'm just saying, that regrets, you could, people
Can't
don't
change
re-
the past.
And people don't realize you're here and now, and it is important here and now. But what you do here and now, you don't have any idea how it's gonna affect you later.
Right.
Because people don't, we're all very impulsive. We don't
Right.
think things through.
Right.
You know what he just said?
Right.
It's ironic, just now, one of them, he says, when can I come over to see your lizard?
You're a lizard.
I have a lizard.
He likes to know.
Anyway,
No, it's
Is mine still
Let's
there?
get back there. No, she left. She left. So let's
Why do you
let's
think
wrap
she
it
got
up.
So quiet.
why
Yeah.
did you leave so soon?
Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap. It's actually
Oh,
very
it's
late.
you-
29.
It's very late.
Mayor Allison, you have to stop.
Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up,
Can
guys.
is there anything more to, because that's a very important subject to me. for what you said about the,
Yeah, let's just summarize what we're saying and then
right,
we'll
but
close it.
how you close, is
We
that the
could
only thing
go
you
on.
have
No,
to
there's
say?
there's a part 3, but I don't think we're gonna get to it.
Yeah, but I mean, along the same lines, what answer
Yeah.
do you have for that?
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Let's sum it up in one line so we can just like, what's the synopsis? The synopsis is
Yeah.
that our perception is finite. It's finite. It's very limited.
Yeah.
And God has an infinite comprehension of what's going on in this world. So there's no surprise. There's no surprise that we don't understand what's going on. When we have questions, there's no surprise that our questions are unanswered. This is beyond our pay grade. This is beyond our comprehension level. Okay, it's like a student who's going to ask a 4th grade biology teacher, why the body works in such a way, a very intricate question that requires a lengthy response, which they only learn on university level. The teacher will say, I'm sorry, but this is beyond your comprehension level. I can't answer. I'm not going to be able to give you an answer now. And God tells us the same thing. He says, we're children. We have such a small comprehension. How could we understand what's best for us? We're like the child who just wants to escape the shot. We feel the pain. We can't feel anything else. We only feel what's in our world of experience. We're limited in our
But the
understanding.
injustice, and then the ones who are unjust are allowed to get away with it.
That's all our perception. It's all in our
I know
eyes.
that.
In other words, the injustice, the unfairness is all in our eyes. In God's eyes, there's no unfairness.
There's fairness in
Everything is
that.
fair. Everything is just.
What happened over
Everything
there
is
is
in order.
fairness?
Yes,
Okay.
No,
in
but
God's eyes. Now, for us to perceive that is impossible. In our perception of good and bad, it's bad. What happened on October 7th? Good or bad?
The massacre is.
Bad, right? It's bad.
It's not only bad, it's
Horrible,
cultural.
beyond bad, right? The worst bad that can happen, right?
Imagine if one of them
Worst
was
bad that
our
can
family member.
Right. In God's eyes, it wasn't bad. Because his perception of good and bad is on a whole different level. So we have no way of understanding how it's good. We have
well,
no
it's
way
free
of
will
perceiving how it's
because
good.
free will is
The
allowed.
intelligence there was tzbrachen, you know what I said? You know what I'm saying, what I just said? There was no intelligence that should have been operated. Normally Israel has the best intelligence.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Holocaust.
Now, let's get back to this. Now, we cannot accept this answer. We cannot say, oh, really? God says it's good? Okay, fine, I'll trust that it's good. We can't say that. It's so bad. In our reality, there's no way of us accepting it's good. If we say it's good, that means we don't realize what happened. That means we're not sympathetic to what happened. That'd be cruelty on our part.
Right.
We are living in our reality, and our appropriate reaction is to say it's bad and there's no excuse for it, and there's no way we can come to terms with it. There's no way we can say it's
a
good.
normal reaction that we have.
Right. And there's no way for us to climb out of that reaction. Only when Mashiach comes will we be able to get out of that reaction. Then we'll understand the bigger picture. But today, there's no way of us getting out of it. If we're able to start rationalizing and justifying, if anybody says they're going to give a justification,
They said Moses
they
wrestled
don't
with
feel the pain.
God, and he saved the Jews at that point after the
golden calf, right?
He saved them. If he didn't put his 2 cents in,
Right.
God would have annihilated them.
Right.
Right.
What if a person?
Wait a minute. So that was justification. Moses did the right thing.
Right. You see the power of prayer.
Why would God do that if he didn't
Right.
think he was wrong?
Right.
Why?
But you see the power of prayer.
Yeah.
Meaning Moses was able to achieve that through his prayer.
Still, Moses was just a prophet. He wasn't a
Right. But
God.
Moses didn't prove God wrong. Moses prayed to God and God accepted his prayer.
Okay.
Understand? I mean, prayer can actually
When they
change
say
the
he
verdict.
wrestled with him, he was defiant.
It doesn't mean that he defeated him and saying, I'm more just than you. That's impossible.
Yeah, I
Moses is not
understand
more
that,
just
but
than God.
he argued with him.
Prayer had an
and
effect on the verdict.
prayer, but also he did argue with him that it's the wrong thing to do. I think that they should be saved, and they will do the right thing after. And turns out Moses was right. They did. Correct? Am I right?
Maybe he
or
was
wrong?
right.
I'm sorry.
He was not that he was right. He was able to beseech God with
Through
prayer.
prayer, I
Prayer,
understand
right.
that.
But what about
But you're
the
saying, wait a minute,
psychology?
so you're saying that he had nothing to, so it was God's decision anyway to do it, he would have done it anyway?
Earlier was God's
Didn't look
decision,
like
and
it.
after was God's decision. first God's decision was to annihilate them, and then
Yeah.
God changed the decision because of the prayer and decided to not annihilate them.
But it was only Moses' prayer, or was it
Moses
everybody
was
else's?
Moses' prayer, because Moses was very special. He was able to pray
But what
on
do you
their
say to
behalf.
a person?
But they all, one second, they all regretted it. They all repented. But Moses
That
had
I
to pray on
agree,
their
and they
behalf.
should
Yeah.
repent, however, I'm not saying they were
Right.
right, they were wrong,
Right,
100%. But
Right,
the fact that Moses got him to overturn it was an amazing time in history.
right.
That wasn't
Okay, let's
supposed
see
to
what's on the
happen.
presentation. Right.
That wasn't supposed to happen,
Did I
correct?
answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's see what's on the screen.
Oh,
Question man has
I'm saying,
is,
I don't know how much psychology plays into the Bible, but there's something that, it's not a Hebrew word, it's called karma. What goes around comes around. Sometimes it works, sometimes it
we don't
doesn't.
believe in karma, we believe in God.
Well, in a way,
Divine
I think,
providence.
but I think of that as God too. God will take care of
Okay,
you.
so we just call it God's hand.
Okay, God's
Yeah.
hand. But then there's the other thing is, if somebody can't have such a tragedy, like Hank, he had a lot of tragedies, people,
Right.
friends that died young, a
Right.
girlfriend and,
Right.
other things. And, okay, but he survived it. But what about people that just can't? And I know suicide is against religion, but there are people that just can't ever get a grip on life again. What would you tell those people as a rabbi?
Sympathize with them.
But the person has to be alone too. When they're alone, they may be okay when they're with you, but then they have to go on their life alone, and it is really hard.
It's very difficult, right? We should try to do everything we could to help them. Again, all of this is not an explanation that we should tell other people
right.
or even tell ourselves in time of pain. This is just so we should know that whatever we're experiencing is because we cannot fathom God's ways.
I got
That's
you.
all. The whole point is there's a lot more that we can't understand,
Oh, I
and
know.
we're never going to know it until the Messiah
I'm
comes.
told that.
Our experience is an experience of pain and sympathy and productivity. Try to find the positivity in the
I
bad.
understand.
He wouldn't have created us to be leaders in civil rights and humanitarianism if we weren't good enough people.
But what I'm
Isn't that
saying,
true?
but let's say
Is
a
that
The fact that
natural,
we're leaders is because
okay,
we're
if
God's
you're
people,
having a
yeah.
natural, let's say there's a volcano erupting, an earthquake.
yeah.
You may not survive.
Right.
At that moment, you're not thinking of God. You're terrified, absolutely
Right.
terrified.
Right.
And
Right.
you're not even thinking, it's not my comprehension,
Right.
it's not an act, nobody did this. So right away, they might blame God because who else, nobody else, it wasn't a person.
Right.
Why? Like especially innocent,
Right.
people that maybe live on a land for
Right.
years and they don't, like what
Right.
happened in
Right.
Maui, for instance, or,
Right. 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 So okay, I'll say one more story. There was a person, a chassid. His name was Reb Mendel Futterfass. He was a Chabad chassid. He passed away in the 90s. And there was one chapter of the Tanya. The Tanya is the most fundamental book of Chabad philosophy. And there's one chapter in the Tanya which discusses suffering. And it explains there how all the suffering is coming from God and there's nothing bad in the world. Everything is good. We just don't see it. We can't comprehend how it's good, right? And that's what's explained in that chapter. And he used to study this chapter profusely. He would study it all the time and try to think about it and internalize the idea that everything is from God and everything is good. And then one day, he was in his older age. He was in his maybe in his 60s or 70s, and his daughter was in a car accident together with her kids, and her kids survived, and she died. And this is after he lived a very hard life, a very tragic life. He was in Siberia. He was sent to exile in Siberia under communist regime for 16 years. He was separated from his family, and then his daughter died, and he was in tremendous pain. And he kept saying to himself, they saw him right afterwards, as he was mourning, and they asked him, what do you say? And he said, I continue reminding myself what happened to all your years of studying this chapter that talks about how all the suffering is good. All I can feel now is pain. All my years of studying this chapter haven't helped me. All I feel now is pain. and this was a rabbi and a scholar and a very pious person. And what we see is that pain is pain and suffering is suffering, and there's nothing you can do about it. And being a believer doesn't mean that you're indifferent. Being a believer is constant work. Being a believer means to constantly work on your belief, to constantly remind yourself of these concepts, that God is so great, there's no way we can understand him. Belief is constant work. Belief is not a status. Being a believer is being a worker, working on belief. It's not a status. It's like being a believer is like being a builder. A builder, you don't say somebody who built a building once in his lifetime and he left. He hasn't done it for 40 years. You say a former builder. A builder means he is actively building. A believer means you're actively working on your belief.
That's if you feel, I know, but if you're in, if you then spiral into depression, you don't see anything else with that depression.
Right.
You don't see God.
Right. The moment the depression becomes more serious,
Well,
then there
Naomi's
needs to
like
be
that.
a much more thorough treatment for
We're
it.
trying to get Naomi
Sometimes
to be on that level, but it's hard. She has a good heart for everything else, but for herself.
there is clinical depression,
Yeah,
which when it's diagnosed, that means it's clinical. And these concepts only work for regular, I mean, not that they only work, but they're only maximally effective for people in an average situation. The moment it gets more serious, then these concepts of faith could help, but they're not going to completely solve it because there's something more.
Yeah,
There's
they
something.
can't. Mentally,
Sometimes
they
it's something
can't.
neurological. Sometimes it's trauma. You know, there's more.
I
There's
always
more
want her
to
to
it.
work on this belief thing, always, and I always tell her that it's important.
Was his son actually said?
Did you hear what he said? Good analogy.
Yes.
If you have to do this, remind yourself.
Well, your son actually, you told me this yourself, that your son said, God, he's not good to me because he doesn't
Feel he's blessed, like,
because he doesn't do any prayers.
he doesn't do it.
He
He wants it
expects it
that,
to come to him.
he feels that,
That's not gonna happen.
yeah, but he watches, observe Shabbos too. He believes that, oh, you're already blessed. I'm not like you. I don't have the same blessing you do. But it's true. He doesn't read enough about it. He doesn't work at it. He wants everything to just happen osmosis. Like that.
Right.
God doesn't work like
And his
that.
confidence too.
Right.
No, he's more confident now.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
So anyway, I just want to show you, I'm not gonna
Alright.
touch it because of my germs, but
very good presentation.
Did this clarify some things?
Yeah, I mean, I thought you had some more definitive ideas or concepts.
Now,
but
if you open the books, you'll
it
find
pretty
several
much tells me
answers.
what I originally thought,
Right.
that you would have this kind of a response.
I want
Right,
to take,
right,
every
right,
week I take
Second, it's
this to
just-
my
If
friend.
you open up various books of Jewish philosophy,
Where is that?
you'll see there are different answers.
Yeah, but which one?
There are books that actually deal with this question
Alright.
of why bad
What
things
page is
happen,
that?
and they. I could recommend you some books in English that summarize the Jewish philosophy about it, but and then they actually talk about why bad things happen. They get
The
into
hard
the
book that we look at, what is that's the Torah book, right?
yeah, not in there, other books.
Is that
I have a
Like
book
a
called
more
Why the
modern
Jews.
books.
I have a book called
Yeah.
Why the Jews.
And there's a good book called A Time to Heal, which is for tragedy. There's another book called Why God Why.
Right, but can you get me a book on that? Because I want to read.
I can get you a book on
That's
that.
very good.
So there are
But I
questions, there
have a
are books that
feeling
deal
you
with
would
the
have-
question, right? That deal with it rationally.
Yeah.
But here I wanted to focus on the fact that we shouldn't try to deal with it rationally.
Right.
It's more effective to realize that our rationale is limited,
And we have to
And
accept it. It's an acceptance
right?
factor, and I totally understand that.
Right. And to realize
I
that in
never-
God's perception, it's.
But I
it's-
never denied that we're more finite than God, and
Right.
God has an answer. But you know, your other explanation
I'm
last
not
time,
surprised that you didn't learn anything new today. This is just
No.
organizing the ideas. Giving them a
but your
framework.
answer last time was even more affirmative with regard to, you said, don't even try to figure it out. I want you to hear this. Not to figure it out, but just quiet.
Right.
And
That's
accept
another,
it,
that's
and
another,
accept.
that's another issue.
I know,
God knows what he's doing.
You know what? That
Right,
causes me
right.
so much anxiety because I try to figure things out, like, why did this person have to suffer? Why did they have slavery? They read the Christianity, they read the Bible they had slaves. How did the
Right,
government allow
right,
slavery? Our
right.
government, they had
Right.
slaves themselves. They impregnated women, against their will. And I'm saying, this is supposed to be a country that